Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Ashley Mailloux, taking a look at the DRF race of the day for Tuesday, November the 26th. Race number 10 at Zia Park. It's the flagship race for the Zia Thoroughbred meet, the $300,000 Zia Park Derby. 3-year-olds obviously going 1 mile and a 16th. Before we take a look at the field, remember, Black Friday sale available right now. DRF.com. Get 20% off just about everything in the entire DRF shop. Go to shop.drf.com. Use the coupon code BF2024 for your favorite handicapping products. Here's the field for the Zia Park Derby. Remember to access free Formulator Pass performances for this race on the Race of the Day event page at drf.com. Take a look, handicap along with us. The 5 indispensable, the 5-2 morning line favorite coming off a good effort in the Oklahoma Derby. Flavien Prat aboard. That's where the money usually goes.
Yeah, it certainly does. And I think this is a horse that just, finds himself in a spot that maybe he can get the job done. I think last time out, he stretched out to 1 mile and an eighth. And watching the Oklahoma Derby, I felt like he made a move that he wanted to be forward, and maybe kind of looking at that trip, maybe the 1 mile and a 16th suits him. But other names in here, Dematic here, Jose Ortiz riding for Steve Asmussen. You go more towards the outside, Kenny McPeak and Brian Hernandez. The big guys are going to Zia Park for this race. It's a lot of money on the line. And I think there's some horses that could certainly take a step forward.
Let's see where the main contenders stack up on our Timeform US pace projector. Here's how Timeform US has it after the opening half mile. They believe the pace will be fast, and they believe the number 8 Shivilris, a stretch-out sprinter and one of the local hopes, will show good speed. Can't argue with that, although the number 3 Vahos is another horse stretching out in distance, draws inside Shivilris. I do think those two have a potential to set a fast pace.
Absolutely. It kind of depends what Shivilris is going to do on debut. Maybe it was just because of the start he wasn't forward, and then we saw him next time out, as you mentioned, was pressing a very quick pace at Zia Park. And I agree with the 3, but I also think the 10 Big City might have his hand a little bit forced. He has enough gate speed that I think he's going to use it to his advantage and try to kind of move over, save ground, and get a good trip.
Woodcore, the number 1, has won his last 2 races in gate-to-wire fashion. Maybe he'll try to take advantage of the inside post with a sharp start. And Woodcore is a horse, they've tried him in stakes competition in the past. It's never really worked out, but he's gotten older, he's gotten more mature, and he's coming into this race in arguably career best form. 2 gate-to-wire wins, last time out at Keeneland, going 1 mile and an eighth. He'll be close to the pace.
He'll be close to it. I don't think he needs the lead, though. 4 starts back. It wasn't a winning performance, but he was able to sit and make a late run. And I think they've tried different things with him at different points. They've tried to have him close from the back of the pack. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. But his recent form gets a really flashy figure. Last time out in 94. Now, as at Keeneland, I think the main thing to consider there is who he faced. No, it wasn't a graded stakes race, but the likes of Society Man and a couple others in there, I think he faced a solid group.
Dematic is up next, and he's going to try to do one better than in his prior Derby tries, the West Virginia Derby, the Texas Derby, where he ran solid seconds. In the Oklahoma Derby, last time out, he was up close to the pace, and I wonder if that's really his preferred running style. You'll note on the pace projector, he's the fastest late pace horse in the race. Maybe they got a little bit too aggressive with him, and he paid the price, so I'm kind of willing to draw a line through that effort.
Yeah, I would too. I think also with that race, having a couple of scratches, it became a shorter and smaller field, and they decided they wanted to try to see what he could do, right? If he would be a little bit closer, maybe he'd have a late punch. It didn't happen at all. And I think with the case of the top 3 in there, they were much the best when it was all said done, so, sort of a strung out field towards the back. But a little bit of a tough sell. I know we've done some previews with Dematic, and we've used him, and he really hasn't shown up for us at this point. So I'm just wondering what is going to be different, because even at some of his 1 mile and a 16th trips, the Texas Derby, he came up a little bit short. He surrendered late. And his following start, Iowa, he just wasn't as good as he was the prior start. He really, to me, was a little bit flat in the stretch. So unsure what to make out of him, especially at 6-1. I think that's a little bit of a tough sell for me as we kind of work our way through this field. I think there's more, sort of enticing horses.
There are some angles for the number 3 Vahos, who tries 2 turns for the first time and makes his 3rd start since Derby Day. Or Nepente Mile, he ran very well. He was battling for the lead throughout, and just look who won that race. Seize the Gray, who came back, of course, to win the Preakness and won the Pennsylvania Derby and is now off to stud. I wish I liked Vahos' 2 sprint races a little bit more than I did when I watched them for the first time. Last time out, though, he did get caught up in a pace duel.
Yeah, I just wish I loved them more. I felt like his first two races were so good. And after that maiden score, he had a lot to prove going to Churchill for the first time, a one-turn mile. As you mentioned, he did not disappoint. To be third and only missed by a length and a quarter, you look at the winner, what he's been able to do. I think that was a really nice performance. And the fractions there, they were quick. I'm just wondering why in the last two he hasn't had a late punch. They've tried getting him back on Lasix, then they stayed at the level and they got him a little bit more forward. But I don't know what's going on with him. His first two were so good.
August Rain, the number 4, is arguably the best 3-year-old in Western Canada, with wins at Century Mile and at Hastings Park in the Canadian Derby and the British Columbia Derby, respectively. He has a pretty strong late kick, and he might get the right race flow here. From a class standpoint, does he fit with these horses with only a 77 Beyer top? That's the big question for me.
Yeah, that is a little bit of a tough sell. And as we look at his last out effort at Hastings, very sloppy track this day in the BC Derby. He got that pace help a little bit that he needed. I think also he just really relishes a wet track. And that's what he was able to get here. And he wins quite nicely and, gets a little bit of win streak going. This is certainly a test for him. And I think I commend the connections, Blaine Wright, in the barn of Blaine Wright, to take a shot with him. And this is at least a shipping move that makes sense. It's not like they're going to the East Coast with him. They're staying out West. He deserves that chance at this point in his career and probably the most accomplished. I mean, he's a 7-time winner at this point, but we'll have to see what he can do here. I will say they have options depending on what the pace is. If it's fast, he can be towards the back. If it's a little bit on the slow side, he can be a little bit more forward, but still going to need to step up regardless.
Although the morning line favorite, the number 5 Indispensable, is still eligible for a Now Winners of 2 life race, he just looks like a late blooming 3-year-old that's coming into his own. Let's watch the Oklahoma Derby, where he finishes a good third. This pace was legitimate, and Indispensable was right up close to it. He's going to sneak on through along the inside. And all things considered, I thought this was a promising performance. First time against graded stakes competition. He's a strong contender because of his tactical speed.
I think there's two sort of things to analyze from the Oklahoma Derby. One of which is he had the inside draw and he wanted to be forward. I feel like he took Mailloux Gutierrez into a spot because he wanted to be forward. With that said, I think looking at his stretch run, I thought he tried to hang in there. And I think Most Wanted was flattered and maybe benefited from the fact that he had a horse to his inside and his outside that kind of hounded him. And to me, that's why I honestly think Most Wanted was able to kick on. So I don't want to take anything away from this horse. I think he's super talented. It took him a little bit to figure things out, but his last 3 races, I think he's been excellent.
Historically, trainer Robertino Diodoro likes to take horses from the States, bring them to Western Canada for races like the Manitoba Derby, the Canadian Derby, and Awesome Road, the number 6, was his horse for this year's series, and it didn't work out. August Rain was better than he was in the Canadian Derby, although that was a fast-paced race, and Awesome Road made the first run into it, and then eventually all the horses that were close tired. They regrouped with this horse. He got a win at Turf Paradise last time out. We'll see if he can take the necessary step forward against tougher competition.
Yeah, I think if you're looking at horses that maybe raced in Western Canada, he is the tougher sell of the two. I think I can take August Rain and maybe make a case. My issue with Awesome Road is I think when his connections made the decision to send him to Western Canada or send him to Lone Star, they thought he had potential, right, based on his races on the East Coast in Kentucky. I don't think he's lived up to that expectation. I think they used the race at Turf Paradise to regroup. Now they feel like maybe he's got some confidence and they're going to select the Zia Park Derby to sort of take another step forward. I think, unfortunately for Awesome Road, this year's edition, it's pretty strong. You have a lot of horses coming in from other jurisdictions, and I just find his inconsistency to not be appealing to me. He's just 2 for 10 lifetime. He's got a 3rd place finish, and that's it.
The 7 is a lot of luck. Failed turf experiment last time out in the Hawthorne Derby, so he's going to move back to his preferred dirt surface, and he's never been off the board on dirt, and he's won his last 2 dirt starts, albeit against weaker competition. 1 at Canterbury, 1 at Sunland in the Mind That Bird Derby. He can be close to the pace.
He could. I think that's sort of the trip that he wants. I'm willing to forgive his last out effort. They tried the turf. Why not for $150,000 and kind of thinking that he could get the distance? I don't think he liked the surface at all, and he wasn't able to hold on the turf like he was on the dirt. So I think he gets benefit there. Returning to the dirt, he does have a win at Zia Park. That's how he graduated, and his numbers, kind of go to the races after that at Sunland. They would be somewhat competitive here. We'll just see if he can take a step forward. He is just making his third start off that little bit of freshening.
Shivilris overcame an awkward break to rally from well off the pace to win his career debut sprinting, and then he was keyed up in his first start against winners, battled on a very hot pace before tiring. He is certainly bred to handle this two-turn distance, being by Medaglia d'Oro out of a Bernardini mare, and I wonder if the fact that he rated from off the pace in his debut allows the jockey some options. If Vahos, the 3, wants the lead, maybe Shivilris will just park himself off that horse.
Yeah, maybe. I think maybe the break, though, hurt him a little bit on debut, and that's why he was shuffled towards the back, but he still showed that he can close. Don't necessarily love 2 sprint tries, and now coming into a mile and a 16th against this group. I think that is really tough to do. I wish he would have had a prep going, I don't know, 2 turns. Don't care the distance, but wish he would have had that under his belt, and he doesn't. But again, he was also a late bloomer, it seems like, right? He just started racing October 10th. You don't really necessarily have time after that, and they tried to put him in that first level allowance to probably just get another win under his belt, and he came up a little bit short.
Brian Hernandez, Kenny McPeak, what a year. Mystic Dan, Torpedo Anna, many others, including the 9 Generous Tipper, who was one of Kenny's better 2-year-olds last year. He was 3rd in the Grade 1 Breeders' Futurity, and then he missed a lot of time, missed all of the Triple Crown Series. They gave him plenty of time to come back, and it looks like he's come back as good as new. He's won his last 2 starts, including this race, the Discovery. Now, he got a very good trip in this race. He was able to save ground entering the first turn on the backstretch, battened down in Tuscan Sky, then engaged in a heated duel. He sat off of them, and he reels them down. But this horse has done little wrong in his last few races and in his entire career, and he got a figure last time.
He got a really nice figure. 99, took a big step forward. That's about, what, a 13-point gain from his highest buyer going into that. I think he's just a horse that he shows up just about every single time, regardless of where he's placed. Brian Hernandez has been aboard him a bunch, knows him very well, but we saw 2 starts back, sort of an interesting performance at Keeneland. He was close, horses passed him, and then he said, nope, I'm going to pass you guys again. And I like that from a horse, especially at this point. You talked about how he had some setbacks. To see him take a race at Churchill and then really step forward in his last 2. I think he's got an immense ton of talent in here. And to me, potentially the horse to beat.
When talking about the pace, you mentioned that the 10 big cities' hand might be forced by this outside post. I think that's a perfect way to describe it, because you just have to go, I think, from post position 10 with a horse with this sort of running style. He wired a field last time out, but it was a slow-paced race where they ran 1, 2, 3 around. Now he's stepping up into tougher waters for the first time in his career. He's talented. He's speedy. I'm just worried about what trip he's going to pull with other speeds to his inside.
Yeah, I'm not sure at all. And I thought kind of it was an interesting trajectory to see him at Gulfstream Park with Jose D'Angelo. And I remember being at Remington going, why is he here? And obviously he ended up being very, very strong there, a career best effort for him. And you have to think, his owner kept him, but switched connections and have maybe a little bit of a different plan for him going forward. I just wonder what's going to happen if he takes some heat and pressure early. And does he get a little bit compromised from the post in here? He's been very consistent to this point in his career. I feel like he's got a fair bit of foundation compared to a handful of others in here. Just another one that's going to get a little bit of a test and needs some, help because of the post.
Before we take a look at our top selections, please click the subscribe button on the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel for the latest DRF videos. Top pick time, Tuesday's race of the day, Zia Park Derby. We've both been impressed with Generous Tipper's entire career pretty much, but especially his last 2 races and the figure he earned last time out of 99. That certainly puts him right there.
Absolutely. To me, on paper, it's between the 9 and the 5, our top 2 in here. And I think the case to be made for Generous Tipper is just to see him take the layoff, get a race under his belt, and really step forward in his last 2. I think Brian Hernandez has options with him in here. I do think he's the horse to beat, but indispensable, I think, is the scary one. He's just 1 for 11 in his career, but in his last 3, Dan, he has taken a huge step forward. And I still think his Oklahoma Derby performance last time out was a pretty strong one. And maybe he has a little bit of a benefit depending what sort of trip they're able to work out. Flavien Prat certainly knows what he's doing and has some options with him.
I'm with Ashley. I'm going to focus my play around the 9 and the 5. Ashley's going 9-5-4-1. I'm going 9-5-10-1. It's the Zia Park Derby, the DRF race of the day for Tuesday. Good luck. Hey, buddy, you look like you're in need of a winner. And just remember, if you like and subscribe right over here, you can get all of the great content on DRF.com, including Race of the Day, stakes previews, and lots more, featuring me and my superb selections. Trust me, you're not going to regret it.